Shabbos Daf Zayin. Rava proves from our Mishnah that since most liquids, the shear of Eitzah to take out liquids into Rosh Hashanah is revius, therefore wine, the shear is a quarter of a revius, because in order to drink wine, you need to dilute it with 3 parts water. Asks Abaya that in Mesechus Nida it says Yain HaShiroini is 2 parts water, not 3. In addition to that, asks Abaya, but you didn't add the water yet. So why are you chayev on just taking out a quarter of a revius? Says Rava, because a quarter of a revius is chashuv, and in order to be over an eitzah, it has to be something that's chashuv. Since you could add water, even though you didn't, it's chashuv. The fact that you asked me from Mesechus Nida and Yain HaShiroini is very weak wine. It's 2 parts water to 1 part wine. Or we're discussing the coloration red. It's 2 parts water, 1 part wine. Reb Nosson says a yisoid. Where wine needs a revius, or a quarter of a revius, when it comes to congealed wine, you need a full kezayis, which equals to a full revius, not a quarter revius. And we have a similar halacha, says Rabbi Yosef, when it comes to tumah of the blood of a nevela, where Beis Shammai says it's tar, it's one of the places that's Beis Shammai's mekel, and Beis Hillel say it's tar provided that's a full revius, which in turn could turn into a kezayis of congealed blood. Kezayis blood. So the Gemara asks 2 questions. When it comes to Tumah, the shear is a kezayis. When it comes to Shabbos, the shear is a revius. Therefore, there's no correlation between the 2 asabai. Perhaps blood, which is thicker than wine, requires a kezayis. But wine needs a lot more than a revius to create a kezayis. And therefore, if you take out into Rosh Hashanah less than a kezayis congealed wine, maybe you're already over. Maybe in that you have a revius. On the other hand, perhaps wine this thin needs a revius. Perhaps blood that's thicker needs less than a revius to create a kezayis. The Mishnah uses the word gemia. The shear for milk is to swallow. Gemia. Says the Gemara, in our Mishnah, gemia is spelled with an aleph, not an ayin. But there are 3 other Mishnayos in Masechta Shabbos that have words that could be spelled either way, aleph or ayin, and they're all spelled with an ayin. Garinim, oimemois, and ma'amtzin. They're all with an ayin. The milk of an animal, the shear is enough to swallow, a gulp. The milk of a woman and the white of an egg is enough to put into the ointment called keeler. And keeler itself is enough to mix it with water. That's the shear. The Gemara remains in a teku. As Rashi explains, we're talking about putting this ointment in 2 eyes. The Gemara just asks, is it enough to put in 2 eyes, or 2 eyes plus whatever remains on your finger, which is a larger shear? Rav says an amazing, famous saying that everything HaKadosh Baruch Hu created in this world is for a purpose. Even an annoying fly can serve a purpose to heal the bite of a hornet, the sting of a hornet. And the slug, which you think has no purpose, could heal a wound. A mosquito could heal a snake bite, and a snake itself could heal boils. That is, if you take a black snake and a white snake and you boil them up and you smear it on the wound. A spider could heal the wound of a scorpion. And the Gemara tells us there are 5 irrational fears where the strong is scared of the weak. One of them is that the lion is scared of a certain animal that screams really loud. Some say, in Yoda I think, or others, want to say something similar to a honey badger, which is known today as a very small animal that's fearless and scares the lion away. An elephant is scared of a mosquito going into its nose, into its ear, and a scorpion is scared of the spider. An eagle is scared of a swallow, and the leviathan is scared of the kilbus. There are 3 animals that as they age, they get stronger. A snake, a fish, as we know, gets larger as it grows, as it gets older, and a pig. Reb Zera bumped into Rav Yehuda when it looked like Rav Yehuda was in a very good mood. And he figured now is a great time for him to ask all the questions in Yonei de Alma, things that seem mundane. And he started off asking him, why do the goats go in front of the sheep? And he said that's like Bris Ha'olam. Goats that are dark is like the choshech, like the darkness, then came the light. Why do sheep have a tail that covers their rear where goats don't? He tells them because we use the sheep's wool for clothing, we cover ourselves, therefore the sheep covers himself. Why does a camel have a very short tail? Because he eats from the thorns, because Baruch Hu didn't want his tail to get stuck in the thorns. Why do cows, bulls have long tails? To swat away the flies in the swamps. Why do grasshoppers have very flexible antennas? Because they jump around in tough trees. If they were harder, they would break off. If one wants to blind a poor grasshopper or an ant, he could remove his antennas. Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu create the eyelids of a chicken that they go from the bottom up? Look at all these questions that he's asking him. He noticed all these things in the Bria, and he wanted to hear an answer. And if you look in the Marsha and others, they explain the deeper meaning behind these questions and answers. He says HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't want the chickens to be blinded by the smoke that comes up, and chickens roost on higher places. And then he asked him the meaning and the significance of somewhere around 15 words in Aramaic. For instance, he asked him, what does dasha mean? What's the meaning of dasha, door? And he says, derech sham. You go through there. And why is it called a darga, step? Derech gag. You go to the rooftop. And in the Mishnah we learned that shem and oil, the shear is to anoint a limb. Says the Gemara, it's a small limb of a small child. Says Rashi, one part of a child's finger, that's a small limb. Have a wonderful day.